Hey, what's up guys? John here. Something huge is happening to the real estate market and to the economy in America, and no one's talking about it. This is way bigger than the banking crisis by 100x. This is going to impact every American, every single American, every one out of the 330, 340 million Americans will feel this. BlackRock, they warn that investors are making a mistake by betting that the Fed is going to cut rates. Now, that's not the story, but what's happening behind the scenes and how we can connect the dots here. We can get a clear picture about what the future is going to look like in America when I get into where they're spending. I mean, they're talking about increasing the military budget 40%. And it's not just America, talking about a big dispute with China. All this is going to connect, and we're going to get a clear picture about the future looks like. Hit the like button. When you do, YouTube's going to share this content that you get more people about what's going on in the economy. I basically remove emotion from finance on this channel so we can get a clear picture of what's going on to make smart financial decisions. If you like the video, hit it. If you don't, still hit the button. So take a look at this. So BlackRock warns that investors are making a mistake by betting on the Fed to cut rates. And also, today's video is sponsored by my company, GreatCreditFast.com. If you have a bad credit score, you need help fixing your credit, maybe you've been putting it off, maybe you're in high interest credit card debt, but you can't do a balance transfer because you don't have the credit score to do it, we would love to help you at GreatCreditFast.com. Go there, schedule an appointment. GreatCreditFast.com. Or maybe you want to invest in distressed real estate because you know there's going to be huge opportunities coming. GreatCreditFast.com. Give us a call at 561-430-5900. Now he says that we don't see rate hikes this year, right? We don't see rate hikes this year, but here's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to see a crash of banks, and I think we're going to see a massive consolidation of banks nationwide. The SVB, Signature Bank, Silvergate Bank, First Republic, Credit Suisse, that was nothing compared to what's happening right now. You look at the balance sheet of these small banks, they hold almost 70% of all commercial loans, and half of all commercial mortgages are floating rate. Floating rate means that their rate is floating with the current interest rate. And so, as they continue to increase interest rates, the cost to service the debt's increasing. Vacancies are going to continue to decline as the economy contracts. Insurance and property taxes are rising. It's a nightmare situation for commercial real estate. And not just commercial, residential. Residential is in massive trouble. And this all connects so perfectly. Like, for example, residential real estate, 40% of all mortgages were taken between 2020 and 2021 at the height of the market, 40%. And they were first-time home buyers put 6% down on average. Second-time buyers put 13%. So the average about 10% down. The cost of sale is about 7%. 5% agent fees, listing and buyer's agent, plus closing costs, escrow fees, and any other fees associated, another 2%, right? So 7%. So basically, 40% of all mortgages, these properties have no equity. Basically no equity in their properties. Not considering the fact that mortgage rates went from 3% to 7%, so most people probably are negative equity. But as that is happening, rent prices are continuing to drop. And this is why, I'm analyzing this because I'm starting a couple new businesses as well, and I'm just paying attention to the trends so we can see where the big opportunities are in America. Rent prices are dropping, right? Rent prices are dropping. What is going to happen as the economy continues to contract? People are going to be forced to rent out their homes, and rents are going to continue to drop even more, putting more pressure on commercial real estate. If there's more supply than available demand, prices come down. Prices come down. But as that is happening and home prices are starting to cool, the U.S. Pentagon, 40% increase. 40% increase. That's what they want to do. They're talking about this big dispute with China. 40% increase, right? And as they're saying that, France is saying the same thing. Talking about a 40% increase. And what is happening right now? You're seeing the BRICS nations, they're getting together, right? They're gonna have a huge competitive advantage over America, a massive competitive advantage, as they are rich with energy, cheap labor. I mean, they're gonna be able to produce items for a fraction of what Americans are going to be able to, especially as we move into clean energy, as they call it, right? What is that going to mean? It means the cost of diesel is going to be going up. Electricity for your home is going to be going up. Gas prices are going to be going up. And so as all this is going up, insurance on your properties are going to be going up as well. And so as that is happening, they continue to put this out, this is how we could win the war with China. The best way to win it is to avoid it entirely. But they're pushing this. They're pushing this narrative a lot. And they're talking about $1 trillion defense. So I started looking into this budget. I'm like, okay, well, how does this whole thing kind of play out? And actually, before I even dive into that, U.S. is opening 4 new military bases in the Philippines, right? So this is serious. And I go to this website, and this is an official website. This isn't like a third-party website, official website. Action rule number 1, they're talking about this, right? So what I think is happening right now is I believe that we are basically handing over full control from America being the superpower. That's what I believe. And we're going to be moving to a situation in which our costs are going to be going through the roof. And as that is happening, inflation is going through the roof. And as that is happening, household and consumer debt is through the roof. $16.9 trillion in consumer debt. You have $1.6 trillion just in auto loans, $1.7 trillion in student loans, about $1 trillion in credit card debt. I mean, you start to do the math here, it's pretty clear that this is going to become a big problem as energy bills and costs continue to rise. People are just going to start defaulting left, right, and center. There's no doubt. The whole article, this is all they talk about. They're very clear that we're going to be moving into this, right? But as that is happening, they're saying, this came out today, your stove is the first appliance to get a battery, but not the last. They're moving everything. And so I did a video a while ago talking about this because there was a guy that did it, he fully electrified his home in like 2018 or 2019, something like that. And he spent like, I forget, it was like something like $75,000 or $78,000 or something to like fully electrify the house. It wasn't cheap, but it was like $75,000 or $78,000. It was a small house, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, something like that. And so they talk about in this article, they mentioned just one upgrade was like $3,800. But they go down and they talk about all these different upgrades. Another $6,000 in incentives. And they talk about these incentives, but it's not cheap. And so, how do you finance this type of move? It's not like you just basically throw away your gas stove and throw away some gas products. You basically have to fully electrify the house. You basically almost have to rebuild it in some capacity. Changing windows, the actual envelope of your property, meaning the entire exterior. They'll actually go there and do tests, and they'll see if there's energy that's seeping out through the stucco if you have an older building. If you do, rip it out and they'll put new stucco in, and the way in which they design it to make sure that you don't lose energy, you're not wasting energy. They go through all these different tests, and it's extremely expensive. In New York right now, they're doing Local Law 97. Look into it. It's going to be a massive, massive, massive situation that's going to unfold in New York real estate, and it's happening now. San Francisco, they're talking about the same exact thing. They're doing the same thing. They're saying Biden just made a regulatory move to ban gas stoves, right? Washington Examiner, New York names deal to ban gas stoves. So as they're doing this, you connect the dots here. People are going to need to start doing these upgrades for their properties, right? And so how can they do upgrades on their properties if there's a consolidation of banks, potentially? They're talking about 186 banks consolidating. If that happens, then there's going to be probably a number of really big banks that are going to be the ones that say yes or no on the loan. If that does not happen, and let's say all the banks stay the same and there's no problem, you still have a situation in which you have 40% of all properties in America that have no equity that they can tap into for these upgrades. Now, am I saying these upgrades are going to happen right now? No, but here's what the White House is saying. So the White House, if you go, and before I even dive into that, I'll show you this. Lands and water sector, just because some people will be like, oh, this isn't going to happen anytime soon. The number one is launched the Beautiful Challenge, right, to conserve 30% of U.S. lands. 30%, right? 30% of U.S. lands, and this happened right, let's see here, 30% of U.S. land, it's National Geographic, I'll even show this to you. Right here. So National Geographic, 30% of U.S. lands, this was their target. In a new executive order, President promised to protect 30% of all U.S. lands, right? And so they're already moving in that direction. And this is right here. This is right there. So when we look at the building sector says expanded program to help families weatherize their homes, right, with $3 billion bipartisan infrastructure bill. So that goes right back to what I was saying. But they talk about this, but energy saving appliance equipment standards with roadmap, and you click it and it takes you here. The Biden administration is leading an example to cut energy use and reduce its carbon footprint by adopting the latest building standards that drive down operating costs and therefore save taxpayer dollars. The U.S. Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, coupled with the appliance standards proposed today for American households, DOE is reiterating our commitment to reaching net zero emissions, improving the air quality, and keeping more money in the pockets of families across the country, beginning April, next week. April 2023, all new buildings, the majority retrofits constructed by the federal government, must comply with 2021 International Energy Conservation Code and the 2019 American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineering Standards 90.1 Building Energy Codes. DOE estimates that this measure will save $4.2 million in operating costs within the first year. I'll leave this article in the show notes. You can read it yourself. So what's going to happen? In the beginning, it's going to be, it's optional, like you can do it, you should do it. But then as the costs continue to rise, people are going to say, you know what? How can I afford these utility bills? If utility bills are only going to continue to rise, look at what's happening in Los Angeles. A lot of places, your utility bill went from $150 to $700 to $800 to $1,000. As we continue to move into this war against fossil fuels, we are essentially putting ourselves into a place of no longer being the land of opportunity, but really the most expensive place to live in the world, right? It's going to be more and more and more expensive to live in America when you have high cost of living, high wage demand that people are going to need to actually live, and then everything else is just going to continue to rise with it. As that is happening, and again, I'm not saying this to get anyone concerned, but I'm looking at new businesses to start. I'm paying attention to what's actually happening. I love real estate, but I think that if I were to be on any side of the real estate trade right now, I would be a seller than a buyer in most cases. Not all cases, but in most. But for example, look at this. So the Green Deal, right? They threw big numbers out saying like 50 trillion, or this one's 51 trillion, 93 trillion on the high end, 51 trillion. So I threw a number together. It's like, okay, let's say that there's 123.6 million households in America, right? And let's say the number is 50 trillion. That would mean it's 400,000 per household. This would just be cost to fund this. Now, they said, just some people threw other numbers out, 600,000 households, 700,000 household, I think someone said here. But am I saying that that's going to happen? No, but what's likely going to happen is taxes are going to continue to rise. Even Biden has a whole new tax plan that's supposed to come out where they were talking about taxing unrealized gains and increasing corporate tax, increasing all these different taxes. So you just start to, like, if you were to look at America, let's say, for example, you were buying a business and you were to look at America as a business and you were looking at the income from that business versus their expenses, you probably would pass on that deal, right? Because America's business is on the downside. It's like investing in Blockbuster Video right now. And so they're pushing us into this place where it's going to be a pretty bad to be like, a real estate investor, like on the commercial side, even in the residential side in the short term, because they're not pricing in the downside risk. When we start to look at what is actually happening right now, the cost to borrow money is actually going to continue to rise. With it, property taxes, energy cost, insurance, and then affordability is likely going to become a real problem for many. And so as many people start leasing their properties out to try to weather the storm, what are they going to do? Rents are going to continue to fall, and as rents are falling, these people that bought commercial properties at a 3 cap, a 4 cap, a 5 cap, they're not going to be able to show any type of, they're not going to be able to get into the green. They're going to be operating their buildings at a loss. So to me, it looks like we're stepping into a tsunami in the real estate market, especially on the commercial side. I think the residential side is in some very, very, very big problems. Am I saying all this is going to play out like tomorrow? No, but I'm saying that, they're starting tomorrow, basically April, right? So it's about 5 days from now. They're starting in this direction. And so, yes, I do believe we are going to see some huge problems in America. And I think that the BRICS nations, I think that everything that's happening to the dollar is going to be, we're not going to be able to basically ignore this. But what they wanted us to all talk about is they wanted to talk about things like Gwyneth Paltrow and all these different celebrity gossip stories and, all these like political divisive conversations and, things that, looking back on it won't matter. That's what they want to do. They want to have us distracted, divided, pointing the finger at each other. versus actually looking at what's happening. America as a whole is being brought to its knees. You want to position yourself. You want to have cash. You want to have potentially precious metals. You want to have great credit. You want to be out of high interest consumer debt, because some people will say, and I've read in other comments like, "Oh, John, why does good credit matter, or why should you even get debt free?" It's because if they continue to increase interest rates, which they likely will in the short term, and the cost of living is rising, the cost to service that debt is going to get more and more and more expensive. And if you default on that debt and you just essentially walk away from it, what's ultimately going to happen is that your credit score is going to get thrashed. And then if there's incredible investing opportunities, you're not going to be able to invest because you're not going to have the credit to get the actual funding. So you want to have great credit. You want to be out of high interest consumer debt. You want to position yourself because I believe we're stepping into the greatest wealth transfer of all time in America. This is going to be the biggest wealth transfer, I think, bigger than 1929. If you look what happened in 1929 or even the 1971 when we got off the gold standard, or even dot-com bubble and 1980 stock crash, all those things are a drop in the bucket compared to what's about to happen in America. It's already happening. Drop it below, hit the like button, subscribe right on my second channel. It's an interactive call and show and a podcast starting next week. I have a podcast getting built right now. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to have live guests. And then also on Instagram for short form content. Follow me over there. And again, if you know fixed credit, we'd love to help you at GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. Phone number 561-430-5900. Catch you guys in the next video.